In the last few lectures, we have made very good progress and we have completed the get part and the post part, which is creating a resource and getting the resource back from the database. In this lecture, we will go on and update a resource. That means we will be updating the region, the existing region inside our database using the DB context. Let's come back to our application, and now we want to create an action method for updating a resource. So after the create method, I will create a method to update a region. So I will put the comment update region, and this will basically be a put HTTP verb, and the location will be regions. And because we want to specify, we want to update a particular region, we want to get the ID. So this will be similar to how we get the region. So we want the ID of the region that we want to update from the route of this URL. So it's pointing to /API/regions, then the ID of the region, and from the body of this request we will take this new region information that we want to update. So let's start with the structure of this method. So this will be public iAction result, and I can call this update, and I will annotate this method with the put keyword. So HTTP put, and using the put keyword and this location, I am using this method as a update functionality. So the update would first need the ID from the route. So let's use the from route attribute, and this will be of type GUID, and the name of the ID, name of the parameter is ID because we want to get it from the route. So let's also use the route attribute on the method, similar to how we did over here. So we will want to get inside the quotes, we want to get the ID, and we also want to make it type safe so that only GUID values are passed. So I will use GUID as well. So make sure the ID word or the name of this variable matches at both places. So then ASP.NET Core will be able to map this information from the route and get it to this parameter. The second thing that this controller will get from Swagger or any client will be a body. So we can say from body, and this will be a request of the region values that we want to update. So similar to how we created a DTO for the create method, we will create another DTO for the update method. So I can go to the DTO folder, right click on DTO, add a new class, and I can call this the update region request DTO. Click on the add button to create this class, and this class will now have only those properties that we want to update, or we are telling the client to update. So let's also open the region model to see what values we can update. We can't let the client update the ID because that's a unique identifier. We can never change this. So it really just depends on whether you are allowing the client to update these three values. If you are, you can copy this and paste it inside the region request DTO to update. So if you want your client to update the code, name, or region, then you should have these properties. If you're not allowing your client to update the code, you can not have the property. So the client now can only modify or update these two properties instead. But as per our business requirements, we will want the client to be able to change the code as well. So that's why I'm keeping all the three properties over here. Now that we have these properties, I can now come back to the controller and use this request DTO over here. So I will say update region request DTO. I will give it a name as well. I will come back over here, and now we can use this ID property to first check if the region exists, and if it does, then we will use the information from here to update the region. But first of all, let's just check for the region first. To check for the region, we can use find or first or default because we're using the ID property here. So let's use the db context dot regions dot first or default x such that x.id matches the ID that is being sent in the route, and let's store that in a variable called region domain model, like that. So first of all, check if region exists. Now, once we have the value back, this could be null or it could be some value, because if the ID is wrong, we will have a null back. If the ID is correct, we will have the region back. So let's say if region is null, then we want to return a not found back, similar to how we did in the get method. But if the region was found, then we want to update this information. So the lines, the code over here is only for when the region was found. So first of all, we will map DTO to domain model. Because we are accepting a DTO from Swagger, we want to convert this to a region domain model. So let's say region domain model, because we already have that. We won't be creating it, we will just be updating it. So we can just update the values coming back from the DTO into the domain model. So I want to update the code which is coming from the request object dot code. Similarly, the name is being, the domain model dot name is coming from this dot name. And finally, I can copy paste this one more time, which is the region image URL, and I want to update this from the request over here. So I have updated the three properties coming from the DTO, and I've updated our domain model. So now I can use this domain model and save the changes. So I can now call db context save changes. Because this entity was already tracked by the db context over in this line, I don't have to call the update method again. I can just directly call save changes, and it is tracking these three properties and the changes that have been done to these three properties. And finally, when I save changes, it will make a change to the database. Finally, when all of this is done, you can return an OK response with the updated DTO. So let's finally convert domain model to DTO, which is the region DTO is equal to new region. This is the region DTO, and we will take values from ID coming from the domain model is equal to this dot ID. Then code is coming from domain model dot code. Similarly, name is coming from domain model dot name, and finally image is coming from domain model dot image. And once we have our DTO back, now we can pass it back to our client, because we never pass domain model back, we always pass DTOs back to the client. So all of this is now done. It's time to test this functionality. So I will run my API. Swagger is now running, and you can see there's a new action method or a new endpoint to update the regions, because this is the put keyword and it's pointing to this location. We have the update method ready. It's now time to try it out. And we need a few details, because we need the ID of the region we want to edit, because that will go in the route. And we also need the updated information. So let's just call the get method first, or the get all methods, to get some actual information. So I'm calling the get all method over here. And let's say I want to modify the Auckland region, or because we have two Wellington regions, let's change it to something else. So let's use this identifier, which is at the top, paste it in the put keyword over here. So we want to modify this one. Now let's copy, or we want to change it from Wellington region to something else. So let's now change the code and the name. So let's say this is now the Queenstown region. Let's just name it QLS. I'm not sure about the actual code, but I'll get back to you on this. And let's change the region image as QLS or Queenstown image.jpg. And you can see that we are updating information, and we are passing that updated information in the request body, and we are identifying the region that we want to update using the ID over here that will go in the route. So when I execute this, the information is now getting updated, and you can see a 200 success response back, and this is the updated information. If I scroll up and use this get all method again, you should now see that this ID, and I can copy this, has changed to Queenstown region. So if I execute this again, I should do a Control F, and this ID has now changed from Wellington region to a Queenstown region. So that proves that our API update method is working as expected. So we have the update method ready. In the next lecture, we will come back and we will create the delete method, which is the last part of the CRUD operations, and we will delete a resource or delete a region from the regions table.